Time for a lovely part of the week where we go across the pond to the always brilliant Professor John Christopher Buell, who, as we like to call him here, Prof. JC, who is the White House correspondent at Real Political News. And, of course, we go over to him on a very historic day and moment. Prof. JC, the first time a woman in your nation's history, many, many years after us, I have to say, has taken on the reins of leadership. She was de facto president whilst your president was having a colonoscopy, correct?
Yes, and now he's out. And
Right.
it's like an Ernest Hemingway short story, The Short and Happy Life of President Kamala Harris. But he's back. He'll be at the White House soon, doing something that is really at his level. Something very important. He will be, in fact, pardoning the Thanksgiving turkey and the alternate peanut butter and jelly this afternoon.
You know, the only reason I knew of that tradition, because many people of my generation, we were mad West Wing fanatics.
Yes.
So I remember that. That's right. It's Thanksgiving coming up, or about to be. When is it? When is Thanksgiving actually? Is it
Thursday?
Thursday. Listen, it's not my Yom Tov, as we say. We don't know about Thanksgiving. The point is
Yom Tov Pontiff.
Thank you very much. The president actually pardons a turkey. What happens to the turkey?
Well, they go free. They go to a petting zoo somewhere, or maybe they hand them over to the National Park Service and they let them run wild with the squirrels.
Prof. JC, this is I suppose, a good news story, but it hasn't been entirely a good news between the president and the vice president. The relationship between President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris does appear, certainly to the world, to be slightly under strain, with allegations and suggestions of counter-briefing against Kamala Harris. What's going on there? I mean...
Well, I think a lot of this is a tempest in the White House. Vice presidents and presidents have always been adversaries in many ways. I mean, look at LBJ, was no big fan of JFK. If you remember, it's before your time, but John Nance Garner called the vice presidency, and I quote him, he said that it's not worth a bucket of warm spit.
Yeah.
I cleaned it up. And it's always been a problem. Now, look, they were adversaries. If you remember during the debate in 2020, she went after him saying that he was against school busing, and she was the result of school busing positively. And there was some friction there indeed. But then he decided that if he wants to win, he will listen to Majority Whip James Clyburn, one of our leading African-American politicians, Democrat, who I assume, and we all assume, he had a little chat with Joe and said, you know, the African-American woman vote is your ticket. You need to get out the vote. We call it GOTV. And one of the ways to do that is to bring in someone who is favorable, who's very likable, who has good experience. She was quite a prosecutor and a district attorney in California. And he took his advice and he brought her on the ticket.
Prof. JC, I know that there is a sense in which there are kind of competing courts, if you like, and very often the vice president is the president in waiting. You know, we think of Reagan and Bush, and I mean, it could, and you would argue, I suspect, should have been Gore, but for the Supreme Court deciding that particular election after Clinton. But in recent times, you know, there have been, you know, good buddies, to say the least, as you know. I mean, there was a moment when Joe Biden, then Vice President Joe Biden, you know, quite literally stood there in tears as President Obama honored him. There doesn't seem to have been that much friction in recent years. And you talk about favorability and popularity, but Kamala Harris's, so I should call her Vice President Harris's, really popularity numbers, her approval ratings are pretty much down there, to say the very least, the lowest in history at this point in the presidency, no?
Well, he's given her some mean tasks. He's tasked her to go fix the border issue, fix the immigration issue, fix the voting rights issue. And, you know, this is a tough road to hoe. And I think she may resent that, although he did send her off to France to see Macron last week, which she may have thought was kind of a fluff thing. But, you know, it's a difficult position always to be in. You're never number one. You're always president, she hopes, in waiting. But I mean, you look at Richard Nixon. He had Spiro Agnew, who was a crook. even though Nixon would say I'm not a crook. There were so many. And Al Gore did not have Bill Clinton campaign for him in Tennessee or Arkansas. There would not have been a Chad issue in Florida if Al Gore had just loosened up a
Maybe.
little.
I think you and I could disagree about that, but I wonder,
was there.
bearing in mind how unpopular I think he was in those parts of the country because of his marriage and so on and so forth, and at that stage, the impeachment. Very, very quickly, Prof. JC, as ever, I could talk to you all day. The Carl Rittenhouse verdict is pending. This is a really interesting story.
They've reached a verdict.
They've reached a verdict.
Yes, they have.
I haven't got the... here we are. Yeah, I'm actually live as it's coming. The verdict in the trial of Carl Rittenhouse in Wisconsin is being announced. It's breaking news. Can I just say...
you heard it first from me.
It's what's that?
You've heard it first from me?
I've heard it first from... Well, we've heard it first from Prof. JC. We will announce it in a moment because it is breaking. One thing I want to say to you very quickly, to you, you'll be aware of this. You know, if he had committed the... alleged offence, we were going to wait and see what the outcome of the trial is in this country. You know, you should be aware that he would have no defence in law for having that weapon. He would conceivably be facing a life sentence for having a semi-automatic weapon in public. And, you know, I wonder whether this isn't just about a trial, but about, if you like, a kind of, not that trials should ever be this, but a referendum on your Second Amendment.
Oh, indeed. That's all it is. It's the NRA. It's the Second Amendment. It's the MAGA people. It's the gun-happy.
I'm going to interrupt you, Prof. JC, to tell you that he's been found not guilty on count one. That's a homicide count. First two, not guilty. He, as you're talking, you won't be able to see it. He is literally standing there, emotional, about to burst into tears. I know you haven't prepared for this, Prof. JC. It's a privilege to have your reaction. What do you think is going to happen now? How worried should we that Kenosha is going to be set aflame? He's just passed out. He's just passed out on the floor. They're getting medical attention to him.
My heart bleeds washed for him.
He's been found not guilty on all counts.
There are riots in the street. I don't think we're going to talk about riots in the street. The Kenosha police are very aware of what's going on. They knew about the verdict beforehand. I mean, they were getting advance notice. So I hopefully we will not have a real issue. You know, the boy walks. That's the way it goes. He had a judge that was, as you certainly know, was an elected official for 6 terms. And, you know, he plays to his constituents. Just that's the way it goes in America. And you would never allow these kind of outrageous gun atrocities to happen in the UK. And that's why I'd love to move there one of these days.
Maybe, but we're not protected by a written constitution either. And at some point, you and I will have a long discussion about that. It's been very interesting, a real moment for me to have you respond to that extraordinary moment. I think one of the most, if not the most important trials in the last decade in your country, as ever. Thank you so much for our postcard from stateside. That's Prof. JC, White House correspondent at Real Political News. Carl Rittenhouse, not guilty on all counts. I'm Rob Rinder. You're listening to Talk Radio, and I'm with you till 7 o'clock.